So we had a long weekend due to the holiday. So let's just see what MSTY did on the Monday after that. Did we break that resistance or not? Hello my friends, this is Legend. So today we're going to take a look at MSTY after we've had that long weekend. And we're going to see if Mr. broke that resistance line or did it get rejected. So let's just go ahead and jump right on into the Webull chart and check it out. Alright, so first of all, here we are on MSTY. And as you can see, we did have a red day today. We are down about 1.15%, which equates to about 24 cents down for the day. This is coming off of that X date and also over that long weekend. Now MSTY did end up paying out today because Friday was a holiday, so they paid out the distribution of that $1.23 per share if you own those shares before the X date. So we're looking at the actual chart, and let's switch over to the adjusted chart just to get a feel of where it sets on the Bollinger Band and the RSI 2 to see if this red day would have gave me a good buying opportunity. So to do that, I just click my little menu bar right here. I go down to chart settings, and under chart settings you'll see access, and there's the actual, and you can flip that right over to the adjusted. And I think the adjusted is actually what would be the default for the Webull charts. So if you're actually wanting to see what the candle or the price movements were, and that's the actual movements, then you'll need to switch that adjusted to the actual chart. Okay? And this is only true for the Webull charts. If you have others, they may be different for sure. And then hit done, and there we go. So now let me turn on the Bollinger Band, and now you can see we still are up above that midpoint of that Bollinger Band. Even though we had that pullback just slightly, as it did open at $20.88, it went as high as $21.02, and then a low of $20.65, and of course that is where it did end up closing. So it closed on the low of the day of $20.65. But even that little pullback did not necessarily go below that midpoint of the Bollinger Band. And we know that that is my first indicator that I'm looking at for a buy point. I want that candle to be down below that midpoint of the Bollinger Band. I prefer it on the bottom, but definitely below the mid. And then I would be looking for this RSI 2, which is this yellow line. I would want it below the 10 mark here. And I drew that 10 mark in just so that you can see the line itself. So currently for me, it is not in a buy position. So therefore, I did not purchase any MSTY shares today. Now, if it comes on down below and it gets in this bottom area and the RSI 2 gets below 10, then I might end up buying a couple shares. But I'll tell you that I will not be buying many because I am so close to getting MSTY paid off, and I do not want to stretch that out. Once my MSTY gets paid off, then I can utilize the distributions, i.e. YieldMax money, to build my position of MSTY. Because at that point, I will have gained all of my money back, all of my capital, and now I can just utilize their money to build up my position. And I always much rather use someone else's money to build up my position than my own money. So that's my goal. And we did a video about that earlier where I did update my position, and I'm showing that I have less than $3 per share to go before my MSTY is paid off. And I'll link that video here if you didn't see that one. But with the candle where it's sitting at the top of that Bollinger Band, that's not a buy-in position for me. but everybody has their own idea and goals. So maybe anything under a certain dollar amount is a buy position for you. And of course, anytime you can buy a share or two under your cost basis, then that can only help bring down your average. And if you're looking to buy more shares, then that's definitely the way to go. Now let's just switch right over to MSTR and let's see if we ended up breaking out of that resistance or did we get rejected. I think we all know with this little red candle right here for MSTY, I think we know the answer, but let's check it out. And there we are. All right, so we're looking at MSTR, and you can see there was that resistance line that we were looking at for the last couple of days here, and it was getting up to it. We did break past it, but then came back down because there's a lot of sellers right here in this area. When you get those long wicks on top, that means there's sellers. If you get long wicks on the bottom, then that means there's buyers there that are pushing it up. So when you get this little upside down hammer look, that's a bearish move. So therefore, I'm not surprised to see a red candle today. Now over that long weekend, it was anybody's guess of what it was going to do. But that's why I'm not really too surprised. I actually would have been quite excited had it kept on going up, but we've got to break that resistance. And we will over time, I'm sure. At least that's my hope. So you can see we did come back up. We did test it, right? We went past it just ever so slightly, but then got rejected and closed at the 395.67. Looks like we opened at 402.64. We went as high as 405.64 and as low as 395.20. And of course closed at that 395.67. So just like on MSTY, we ended up closing pretty much right there at the bottom of that candle. Now the other interesting thing is we do have this other line here. You can see this was our resistance here that we were trying to break. But what is this line and why is it there? Well, we drew this line in here because right here was a previous resistance, right? It went up, hit this line, and then got rejected. Then went up, tested that line, and finally broke through it. But we did not get that confirmation candle, and it came back down, right? And then the next day, we broke through it again. And then here for this candle, that was our confirmation of breaking this resistance. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go up from there on, because you could have false breakouts, just like you could have false breakdowns. But as you can see, we did have that green candle here, so that was a very positive thing, but we did not break that resistance. But it did help to confirm a breakout here for this previous resistance line, which would then make it a support line. But make sure you don't get it twisted, because it does not mean that it cannot break back down below it, as this candle could have been a false breakout, right? But this candle here coming back down, where did it come down to? Look at that. It came back down and tested this now support line, right? That could be a good sign, because anytime that you can break past a resistance and move on up, and then you come back down and you test a previous resistance, which is now a new support line, could be, and I stress could be, a potential buy point, because you are now testing this, what is now a support line. And if it bounces off of this line, we could move right on back up, right? But what does the other indicators show us? And is that possible, or are we getting pulled back down to this middle magnet right here? In that middle of that Bollinger Band, I like to say that it's like a magnet. The candles want to move toward that midpoint of the Bollinger Band. But of course, if the candles are strong enough, they can cause the Bollinger Band midpoint to actually move up toward it. But either way, one of them is going to move toward the other. But it takes a lot of momentum and a lot of buying power to get that Bollinger Band to start moving up with it. Right now, it is coming back down and possibly testing that midpoint. But like I said, we do have one positive sign here is it did go to that support line, and now we're going to see, can we bounce off of that support line and confirm that this line is indeed a support line? Because this line here, even though it is a resistance line, and we did break past it, but we did not confirm it, right? So until we get a candle who lives up here above this line, then it is not confirmed, and it will not change from resistance to support until that happens. But right now, we're looking at a support line of roughly 394.79, and we're looking at a resistance line here of about 404.13. And right now, we are sitting right there somewhat in between those two lines. So this still could be very interesting. But of course, if we do break, it could come on back down, get below that midpoint, that RSI 2 here, that's just the yellow line, could get down below the 10. And you know what that means? That's right, it's a buy point for me. And I do have a few shares of MSTR, as I do want that positive upside movement. I want some of those crazy jump ups that MSTR does have the ability to make. But MSTY itself is my long term and what I use as, quote, income play. So for MSTY or MSTR, currently it is not a buy point for me. But that is, of course, my opinion, and I'm only talking about what I'm looking at here. Now we can see we are still up on the MACD. The momentum bars here, that did come down just slightly. And that makes sense because we have that red candle here, right? And the RSI 2, of course, did come down slightly, all because of the red day. And one thing other we want to just mention here is MSTR dropped 2.06%, but what did MSTY drop? 1.15%. So MSTY did not drop as far as MSTR, and we are still staying above our $20.38. Now for me, that is just my own personal line here, as that is the price that it opened at originally, and I just prefer MSTY to stay above it. So coming off of the long weekend, we did not have a positive move, but because we were sitting at that resistance line on MSTR, I'm not too surprised that we did have that down day today. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button. It'd be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stocks or ETFs. And until next time, Legend out.